Welcome to Time Management in a Virtual Learning Environment, a workshop brought to you by the Tomas Rivera Center Academic Success Coaching Program at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Before we get started, please take a moment to sign in to this workshop by using the QR code that you see on your screen, or take a moment to go to the link that you see at the bottom of the screen. You can go to bit.ly/ASConlineWS. And as we start, I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes from Tracy. He's the author of a time management book called Eat That Frog. There is never enough time to do everything, but there's always enough time to do the most important thing. The reason this is so relevant to you as a college student, especially in these unprecedented times that we find ourselves in, is we have to understand that we can make choices, and we do make choices throughout our day and week about how we spend our time. And if you're like me, you have probably taken a look at your day or your week and thought, there's just not enough hours in the day. But we do get the same number of hours every day, and it's up to us to decide how we want to spend that time. So we can be intentional and use some really good time management practices to get the most of our time and make sure that those most important things are done and don't get left off undone. And let me just take a moment here to say that it's not about perfection. It's not about planning the perfect schedule and then following it through without any hiccups or mistakes. I want you to keep in mind that as you are going through your semester and you're planning your time and trying to make sure you have enough time to get everything done, you show yourself some compassion and cut yourself some slack. It's not always going to go perfectly, but again, it's not about perfection. It's about being intentional and moving forward and finding the strategies that work best for you. So remember when I said earlier that it's not about perfection. We're not talking about perfection when it comes to time management. In fact, I would like for you to remove that word from your vocabulary. None of us are perfect. All we can do is strive to do the best that we can and be the best that we can every day. So think for a minute with me about the quote that's on the screen here. The goal of time management is to find a balance between the things that you need to do and the things that you want to do. Now, I'd like for you to participate with me in a small activity. So if you are somewhere where you are able to stand and it's safe to stand, I'd like for you to take a minute right now and stand up. And then choose a leg and stand on that leg while lifting your other leg. So right now, again, if it's someplace safe and you can do this, you should be standing on one leg. And let's think about what we're doing here. What are we doing? We're balancing, of course. And that looks different for all of us. Some of you may be moving around quite a bit. Some of you may be moving your arms or swaying your body back and forth. That's okay. Others may be standing pretty still. And if you are one of those people who is standing pretty still, I want you to pay attention though to your feet and your ankle. Those tiny muscles in your foot and in your ankle, and the tiny movements and the tiny adjustments that you're having to make to maintain that balance. So we all have to make adjustments and movements to maintain that balance. And that's exactly the same thing that we're talking about when we say that time management is about balance. It's about making adjustments. It's about finding that flexibility. So if you are still standing on one foot at this point, congratulations, you have great balance. You can all sit down if you chose to stand and participate in that activity. Again, I appreciate that if you were able to. Just remember, it's not about perfection. It's not about finding the perfect thing and just sticking with that. It's about balancing and making adjustments so that you can stay on track. For the next few slides, we're going to talk about the 3 P's of great time management. Now, time management is a pretty foundational skill to have, not just while you're in school, but professionally, for life in general, if you can get a pretty good handle on your time management, chances are you're going to be more successful at doing the things that you want to do. So we start with planning. Planning is pretty essential to time management. It's important to be able to look ahead, to look at the big picture, to see what's coming so that then you can plan for it. When it comes to different methods of planning, there's no one right method for everyone, right? Everybody has a different method that works best for them. So a lot of people like to use a paper planner or calendar or agenda like the one you see on the screen. That's great. It works well for a lot of people. Others prefer to use maybe their calendar on their computer or their phone, or maybe digital apps to help them remember things, to set reminders. That's okay too. Others prefer to just use sticky notes on the wall or their mirror, and that's okay too. The idea here, again, is to find a method that works best for you. And now later, in a later workshop, we're going to cover some specific strategies for planning and some tools to look at. But for right now, keep in mind that it doesn't matter what methods work great for anybody else. If it doesn't work for you, it's not the method for you. And you also might consider that maybe you've been using a particular method for planning for quite some time and it just doesn't seem to be working anymore. And that's okay. It just means it's time to try something new. If you're interested in looking at the tools that we have to offer, whether it's a planner or a calendar, go to our website at utsa.edu/trcss/ASC. We have some great resources on time management and planning there. So in the meantime, between this workshop and the next, feel free to check those out and see if you can find something that you think you're willing to try. The next P for time management is to prioritize. Remember the quote that I mentioned at the beginning about there's not enough time to do everything, but there is enough time to do the most important things. But that can be difficult, right? It can be hard to determine which are the most important things. So we recommend using a priority matrix like the one that you see on the screen. All this is a tool for helping you figure out what needs to happen now and what can wait until later. And you'll notice that it's divided by two different axes. You have your axis of importance and your axis of urgency. And then you have 4 quadrants where you would write down your tasks or projects that you have to do. So let's take a minute to go through this real quick. I'll explain to you how it works. And hopefully you'll see what a great tool this is in helping you really determine when you're planning which things you need to plan to do first. Let's take a look at urgency first, that line across the top. It's pretty straightforward. Urgency just refers to your timeline. How soon does this have to happen? Does it have to happen today or tomorrow or next week or maybe even next month? And then the axis of importance, think of that in terms of what are the consequences if this doesn't get done? Because everything that you have in life is pretty important. School is important, your job is important, studying and making good grades are important. So is self-care, working out, spending time with friends, being active. So it's just a matter of rating it in terms of what are the consequences if this doesn't happen by the time it's due. So for instance, let's take a look at quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 would be tasks that are high in urgency and importance. So you want to think about putting out fires. That's a common thing that we say when we've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm putting out fires. These are those urgent things that have to happen today. If they don't happen today, consequences are not good, right? So the problem with putting too many things in quadrant 1, too many tasks or projects or homework assignments, is you're not just running around putting out fires, you feel like you are on fire, right? So you want to avoid getting to the point where everything is in quadrant 1. Instead, you want to start prioritizing and planning when most of your tasks are in quadrant 2. These are tasks that are important, but they're not necessarily high in urgency. And you are really at your most effective when you work from quadrant 2. So this would be anything like studying for an exam, but maybe that exam is 2 to 3 weeks away. preparing for a presentation for class, but it's not until the end of the month. You want this to be in quadrant 2 because you want to keep it in the front of your mind, but you know you still have time. Quadrant 3 is kind of interesting because it's high in urgency, but not so high in importance. So when it comes to tasks in quadrant 3, think about these things. They need to get done, but the consequences for not getting them done might be lower than something else. And in quadrant 3, think of things that you can delegate. Can you ask someone else to do this for you? Now, I will caution you, don't put your term paper in quadrant 3, right? You don't want to delegate somebody else to do your homework or write a paper for you. Those are not the types of things that go here. But is there an errand that you need to run? Is there a book that you need to return to the library? Can you ask a friend or a roommate to do that? Those types of tasks are great for quadrant 3. And that leaves us with quadrant 4. These tasks have been determined to be low in importance, low in urgency. And remember, it's not that they're not important, it's just that the consequences of them not happening on time are low. So my recommendation would be fill this box with activities that you can use to reward yourself for when you've done the tasks that are in 1, 2, and 3 in those quadrants. So take a minute. Again, if you're interested in finding this, we have it on our website. You can go to our website, find this tool, and print it out if you'd like. But I hope you'll take a minute to give it a try and figure out just how important these things are, and then do your planning from here. This is a great tool to use, like I said, in addition with the planning P. The third P is the P that we want to avoid, and that is procrastination. So take just a minute to look at this image on the screen and see if you can identify yourself ever in one of these parts of this procrastination cycle. I'm pretty sure we all have. The thing about procrastination is it's pretty much part of the human condition, right? It's most of us are procrastinators. It's just human nature to want to put off the things that we don't want to do. Sometimes delaying or putting things off is a good thing. Remember that priority matrix that we went through. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to put things off to the point where they become problematic. And I will say there are a lot of different reasons for procrastination. Let me just tell you that it's not necessarily because you're lazy, right? Sometimes, yes, we just don't have the motivation. But a lot of times there's a deeper reason behind procrastination. Sometimes we are overwhelmed, or we're unsure, or we're afraid of failing. And I will take a moment to say that if you do tend to be a procrastinator most of the time and you're not really sure why, it would be a great idea to schedule an appointment with an academic coach. We can help you sit down and kind of dig deeper and find out the reasons for your procrastination so that we can start to help you find strategies to set yourself up for success. There isn't enough time to go into all the reasons and all this for procrastination or all the strategies, but I do want to share my favorite one with you. And that is to eat the frog. And you may be asking yourself, what is this crazy woman doing telling me to eat a frog? And what does that have to do with procrastination or time management? And I'll explain by sharing a quote by my favorite author, one of my favorite authors, Mark Twain, who said, "Eat a live frog first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day." So in other words, that frog is the task that you tend to want to put off. Maybe it's cracking open that bio book and starting to read, or maybe it's practicing your math problems or studying for chemistry. Whatever that task is that you don't really want to do, that's your frog. And if you eat that frog first, then it's done, it's over with, and you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day. Take a minute to ask yourself, what happens when you don't eat the frog? What happens when you don't open that biology book and start reading? What happens when you don't start making those flashcards for history? Does it just go away? Of course not. These things don't go away. They just get, in terms of frog analogy, get bigger and they croak louder at you. So the next time you think about putting something off that you know you really should be doing, just remember what Mark Twain said and eat the frog. I hope this workshop has been helpful and that you've learned a couple of new things. I hope we've been able to highlight some strategies that can help you be successful in managing your time, especially in this new environment that you're finding yourself in with virtual learning. So I'd like for you to, in just a second, pause the workshop, find a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and write down your answers to the following questions. What are 2 new things you learned? Maybe something that was new to you about time management or planning. And then after that, write down 1 strategy you're willing to try. Maybe it's using a planner to plan ahead, or maybe it's eating the frog so that you can help yourself avoid procrastination. Whatever that is, like I said, take a minute to pause this and write those answers down so that you'll remember them. And then don't forget to come back because we have just a little bit more information for you after this. Thanks so much for watching. We really do value your feedback, so if you'll take a moment to complete a brief evaluation. If you used the QR code at the beginning of the workshop to sign in, then you can continue with that and complete the evaluation there. If not, feel free to use this QR code or go to the link that you see on the screen, bit.ly/ASConline WSEVAL. And please offer your feedback and let us know if there are any other workshop topics you'd like to see. If you have any questions on the services that we have to offer, here's how you can connect with us. You can schedule an appointment with an academic coach by calling 210-458-4694 or fill out a coaching interest form at bit.ly/ASCinterest. Our services will be offered virtually this fall, so we can connect with you and meet over the phone or a virtual platform such as Zoom or WebEx or Blackboard Collaborate. If you're interested in looking at the resources we have to offer or maybe the other programs that are offered by the TRC, check out our website at www.utsa.edu/TRCSS. And connect with us on social media. We often offer study strategies and tips, motivation, and sometimes just a funny meme to get you through your week on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And last but not least, for more helpful videos on study strategies, check out our YouTube video and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great semester.